I woke up because something warm was wrapped around my ribs, and it was definitely not my blanket. For one hopeful, beautiful second, I thought maybe I had finally matured into the kind of adult who remembered to turn off the heater. Then the warmth tightened. It breathed. Slow. Deep. Alarmingly close to my ear. My eyes opened 1 millimeter at a time, because I've always believed that if you fully open your eyes during a crisis, you are legally acknowledging the crisis. Silver hair spilled across my pillow like liquid moonlight. A faint glow pulsed beneath smooth skin the color of polished pearl. One very long arm was draped over my chest, and another leg, considerably longer than any human leg had a right to be, was hooked possessively over mine. There was an alien in my bed. Not just any alien. My alien maid. I did what any rational man would do. I froze so completely that I briefly achieved enlightenment. Maybe if I didn't move, she would assume I was furniture. Her name was Lyra, and she had arrived yesterday as part of the Galactic Domestic Exchange Program, a government initiative designed to encourage interspecies trust through household cooperation. I had applied because the brochure strongly suggested I might receive a helpful cleaning drone. What I received instead was a 7-foot-tall extraterrestrial woman whose presence made my entire apartment look like a dollhouse. At the orientation office they had said, very casually, "Some species present as aesthetically striking to humans." That was bureaucratic language for, prepared to forget how blinking works. Lyra shifted slightly, her cheek pressing against my shoulder. Her skin was warm, warmer than human, and she gave off a subtle scent like rain hitting hot pavement. "Focus, idiot," I told myself. "There is an alien attached to you." I attempted a careful inhale. Big mistake. Her eyes opened instantly. They reflected the dim streetlight with a soft, predatory shimmer, not threatening, just very aware. "Good," she said calmly. "Your respiration is stable." "Why?" I croaked. "Are you in my bed?" She tilted her head as if I had asked why gravity existed. "You invited me into your safety perimeter." "I did not invite you into my safety perimeter." "You stated, at 21:14 hours, relax, you're safe here." "Oh no. I had said that." She'd been standing awkwardly near the door after unpacking, holding her small travel case like she wasn't sure she was allowed to put it down. She had looked nervous. Which is a difficult look for someone capable of bending a steel coat rack by accident. So I'd smiled and said the most normal human thing imaginable. "Relax, you're safe here." Apparently that was the alien equivalent of proposing marriage. She studied my face with quiet concentration. "Pack law is absolute," she continued. "I don't have a pack," I whispered. "You do now." My brain attempted to reboot, and instead made the Windows shutdown noise. "Explain." "When the vulnerable are offered safety," she said, "a life bond is formed. I am now yours to protect, and you are mine to defend." I swallowed. "Defend from what?" She glanced toward the bedroom window. "Unspecified threats." "That is not comforting." Her arm tightened slightly, almost unconsciously. It was not a romantic gesture. It was containment. "You exhibit elevated heart rate," she observed. "Because I woke up spooning an alien." "This is not spooning. This is standard pack sleep formation." Of course it was. "How did you even get in here?" I asked. "The den was unsecured. I closed the door. It did not lock." I made a mental note to immediately purchase 12 locks. "And sleeping together is required?" I asked cautiously. "For the first cycles, proximity reinforces the bond." "Cycles. Great. That sounded temporary in the same way glaciers are temporary." I shifted experimentally. Her leg tightened. Not aggressively. Just decisively. "Movement suggests distress," she said softly. "I am distressed." She considered this, then adjusted her grip, not looser, but somehow more careful. It was oddly comforting. Which was a deeply concerning development. "You may rest," she murmured. "I cannot rest. There is an alien hugging me." A pause. Then, almost shyly, "Is the pressure unpleasant?" I hesitated. It wasn't. In fact, it was the safest I'd felt in years, like nothing short of a meteor could reach me. "That is not the point," I said. She seemed to accept this, even if she clearly disagreed. After a moment she added, "Your dwelling required defensive improvement." That explained the scraping noises I vaguely remembered. "What did you do?" "I relocated the soft structures into a nest configuration." "You moved my couch?" "It is against the door. Intruders will struggle." "My coffee table?" "Now a barricade." "The microwave?" She hesitated. It emitted hostile humming. "It was reheating pasta." "A likely story." I dragged a hand down my face. This was my life now. Then she said very gently, "Pack leader." I blinked. "Pack leader?" "You establish safety. Authority follows." No, I am extremely unqualified to lead anything. I once killed a cactus." "You exaggerate your weakness." "I absolutely do not." She watched me for a long moment, her expression softening in a way that made my chest feel unexpectedly tight. "Your modesty is noted," she said. That was not modesty. That was survival instinct. A quiet settled between us. The kind that should have been awkward, but wasn't. Her thumb traced a small, absent circle against my arm, as if confirming I was real. "Does this bond bother you?" she asked. The question caught me off guard. I thought about the empty apartment before she arrived. The silence. The way no one had said my name out loud in days. "No," I admitted. Her shoulders relaxed almost imperceptibly. "Good." Then she added completely casually, "I informed my family." Every muscle in my body went rigid. "You what?" "They will wish to evaluate the pack leader." "Evaluate how?" "They arrive tomorrow." I stared at the ceiling. Tomorrow. Tomorrow implied very large aliens knowing where I lived. "How many is family?" I asked faintly. She seemed to calculate. "Immediate?" 8. 8. "Extended may follow if you prove acceptable." "Acceptable." Fantastic. I lay there in stunned silence while dawn slowly began to creep through the curtains. After a moment, she rested her forehead lightly against my shoulder, a gesture that felt ancient and instinctive. Strangely, I didn't move away. Panic was still present, of course. But beneath it was something warmer. Something dangerously close to belonging. "Rest, pack leader," she whispered. Outside, a distant rumble rolled across the sky, too deep to be thunder. I had a feeling my life was about to get significantly louder. The rumble didn't stop. At first I told myself it was just early morning construction, which would have been impressive considering I lived on the 12th floor and the sound felt like it was vibrating directly through my spine. Then the sunlight disappeared. Not dimmed. Disappeared. The entire apartment fell into a shadow so massive it felt intentional. Lyra, who had been calmly making something that looked suspiciously like a defensive perimeter out of my throw pillows, lifted her head. "They are punctual," she said with clear approval. "They?" My voice cracked so hard it briefly hit a frequency only dolphins could hear. She walked to the window and pulled the curtain aside. I joined her. Immediately regretted it. A ship hovered over the building, not flying so much as looming. It was less of a spacecraft and more of a floating continent, its underside glowing with slow geometric patterns that made my brain itch if I looked too long. Cars had stopped in the street. People were pointing. Someone dropped a bicycle and just walked away from it. "Please tell me that is not your family," I whispered. "It is only the transport vessel," she said. "Only." A section of the ship shifted, panels folding open with elegant mechanical precision. Something descended, not quite a beam, not quite a staircase, more like gravity had decided to cooperate selectively. The first relative stepped down. The sidewalk cracked. He had to crouch just to fit beneath the streetlights. His shoulders were broader than my entire kitchen, his skin a deeper shade of silver threaded with faint lines of blue light. His eyes locked onto the building. Locked onto me. I stepped back from the window. Nope, I said. I'm not emotionally prepared for giants before coffee. Lyra tilted her head. Should I prepare coffee for them? For the giants? If it is culturally respectful. I own 4 mugs. A second figure emerged from the ship, somehow even taller, draped in layered fabric that shimmered like oil on water. She carried a container roughly the size of my refrigerator, as if it weighed nothing. A third followed. Then a fourth. By the time the 6th one stepped onto the street, my brain had abandoned language entirely and was communicating purely through internal screaming. They seem large, I managed. You seem small, Lyra replied kindly. There was a knock on my apartment door. Not a normal knock. A controlled, extremely careful tap that still rattled the hinges. Lyra brightened in a way that was both adorable and deeply terrifying. They are demonstrating restraint, she said proudly. I opened the door. Very slowly. The hallway was full. Not crowded, full, like trying to fit a thunderstorm into a shoebox. The nearest relative bent lower, studying me with luminous eyes. A device hovered near his wrist, projecting faint scanning lines that passed over my body. Bone density acceptable, he announced. Thank you, I said. Another leaned closer, inhaling thoughtfully. Nutritionally fragile, she declared. I had cereal, I protested weakly. A third one made a soft emotional sound and suddenly pulled me into a hug. When I say hug, I mean I briefly ceased to exist as an independent structure. Our Lyra chose well, the giant murmured. My feet were not touching the ground. Lyra gently pried me free. Do not compress the pack leader, she instructed. Apologies, the giant said immediately. I staggered backward directly into my coat rack, which collapsed in surrender. The relatives stepped inside one by one, each movement absurdly cautious. One removed his footwear with surgical precision and placed the shoes outside the door, completely blocking the hallway. Then came the gifts. The refrigerator-sized container opened to reveal a large, shimmering fish that twitched once. I stared at it. It stared at me. We present nourishment, the tall woman said. It's still alive. Freshness is respect. Another relative handed me a long metallic object humming softly with contained energy. For ceremonial dominance. I don't dominate anything. Modesty again, he said approvingly. Then, because the universe enjoys slapstick, I slipped slightly on the edge of the rug and dropped the banana I'd been holding. It hit the floor with a soft thud. Every alien froze. All eyes lowered to the banana. The eldest among them stepped forward, crouched, and lifted it with reverence. A symbolic offering, she whispered. Before I could explain potassium, they bowed. To me. I looked at Lyra. Why are they bowing? You have shared sacred fruit. It's not sacred, it's from a discount grocery bin. She smiled faintly. Meaning is assigned by the act, not the object. Great. Bananas were holy now. Throughout the chaos, Lyra never strayed far. When the relatives' voices grew too loud, she subtly shifted closer. When one of them gestured too broadly near my bookshelf, she redirected the motion before my entire literary collection became collateral damage. At one point our hands brushed. She didn't pull away. Instead, her fingers curled lightly around mine, grounding steady. You are performing well, she murmured. I am one shock away from becoming vapor. Yet you remain. There was unmistakable pride in her voice. Soon the relatives arranged themselves throughout the apartment with surprising discipline, folding their massive frames into impossibly small spaces. Then the eldest turned toward me. Pack leader, she said. We gather for the bond feast. My stomach dropped. The what? It is required, Lyra explained gently. The leader must host, proving the den thrives. Tonight? Yes. I did rapid inventory in my head. Half a loaf of bread. Eggs. Something questionable in the freezer. One frying pan that had seen things. How much food qualifies as thriving? I asked carefully. The eldest considered. Enough that none depart hungry. I looked around at the towering figures currently ducking beneath my ceiling fan. I calculated the grocery bill. I briefly considered faking my own disappearance. Lyra squeezed my hand once. We will assist you, she said. There was such quiet certainty in her voice that my panic eased, just a little. Still, as I stared at the collection of apex extraterrestrials now treating my apartment like a sacred gathering hall, one thought rang louder than the rest. If I survived cooking dinner for giants, I might survive anything. By the time I agreed to host dinner for a group of beings who could probably bench press my apartment building, I had entered a strange new mental state somewhere between bravery and complete neurological shutdown. Where does one acquire food for this? I asked, gesturing helplessly at the living room, where 8 enormous aliens were attempting to sit without violating structural engineering laws. We brought supplemental protein, one of them said helpfully, nudging the still-twitching fish closer with a toe the size of my forearm. Great, I said. I'll just emotionally prepare to cook something that might cook me back. Lyra stepped beside me, her shoulder nearly brushing mine. I had noticed she did that often now, positioning herself within reach, like an unconscious orbit. We will go to your market, she said. You're coming with me? You are pack leader. Leaders should not forage alone. 5 minutes later I discovered that grocery shopping with a 7-foot glowing alien is an excellent way to become the most discussed person within a 3-mile radius. People stopped mid-aisle. Carts collided. A child waved and asked if Lyra was a princess. Lyra, taking the question seriously, replied, I do not govern territory, but I appreciate the respect. We bought everything that looked remotely edible. 3 carts later, the store manager personally opened a new checkout lane while trying very hard not to stare. Back at the apartment, preparation began. And by preparation I mean chaos. I will heat the bread, announced one relative. Before I could ask how, he produced a slender device that hummed ominously. Wait! A beam of precise blue light touched the loaf. The bread vanished. Not burned. Not toasted. Gone. He studied the empty counter. It appears I improved it excessively. Another alien discovered my dining table. This surface is unstable, she declared, pressing one finger down. The table collapsed like it had simply lost the will to live. I ate at that table, I cried. You shall eat at a stronger one, she assured me. Someone else opened the refrigerator and pulled out a container of leftover pasta. Is this a larval species? He asked. Don't insult it. That was dinner 2 nights ago. Meanwhile, the fish escaped. I turned just in time to see it flop determinately across the floor. 2 giants lunged. One missed and punched a crater into the drywall. I am so sorry, he said immediately. Lyra caught the fish with impossible grace and carried it to the sink. Perhaps we should render it unconscious, she suggested. Yes, I said faintly. Let's do that. Somehow, through teamwork, alien technology used under strict supervision, and what I can only describe as divine intervention, food began to take shape. Extra burners appeared from a portable field unit. Vegetables were sliced with surgical perfection. Something aromatic simmered. At one point I realized Lyra had quietly been correcting disasters before I even noticed them, lowering heat levels, redirecting enthusiastic helpers, rebuilding the meal from the brink of annihilation. You don't have to fix everything, I told her. She glanced at me, expression soft. I know. I wish to. The words settled somewhere deeper than expected. When the food was finally laid out, across reinforced surfaces borrowed from the ship, the relatives gathered with surprising formality. I wiped my hands on a towel, suddenly aware that everyone was looking at me. Do I say something? I whispered. Lyra nodded once. Leaders welcome the pack. Right. No pressure. I cleared my throat. Welcome to my home. Please don't lean on anything load-bearing. A ripple of what sounded suspiciously like approval moved through the room. We began to eat. Or rather, they began to eat with careful restraint that still put professional competitive eaters to shame. Halfway through the meal, the eldest leaned forward. "Pack leader," she said, "what victories earned you our daughter's bond?" Every conversation stopped. I felt Lyra go very still beside me. Victories? I thought about my life. The time I assembled a bookshelf correctly on the first try seemed unlikely to qualify. "I told her she was safe," I admitted. Silence fell, deep and reverent. Then the eldest inclined her massive head. "The highest offering," she said. Others echoed the gesture. Emotion caught me off guard, sharp and warm. To them, safety wasn't casual reassurance. It was sacred. Lyra's hand found mine beneath the table. Her thumb brushed once across my knuckles. After a moment she rose slightly. "Walk with me," she murmured. We stepped onto the balcony, the evening air cool against the lingering heat of the apartment. City lights flickered below. For a while she simply stood beside me. Then she said quietly, "There is something you should understand. Bonding begins as instinct, but remaining is choice." I turned toward her. "If you release me from this bond, I will go without protest," she continued. "Your safety obligation would be fulfilled." The idea hit harder than expected. Leave? The apartment without her suddenly felt too large. Too silent. "I don't want you to go," I said. Her eyes searched mine, luminous in the dusk. "Are you certain? My presence alters your life." "It already has," I said. "And I like it better this way." Something in her expression softened, not the polite calm she showed others, but something warmer. Almost shy. "Then I remain," she said. Before I could respond, a sharp mechanical whine cut through the air. 3 dark vehicles hovered into view outside the building, angular and unmistakably official. "Government." A voice amplified across the street. "Unregistered large species gathering detected. Stand by for compliance verification." Tension rippled inside the apartment. The relatives rose as one. Lyra moved in front of me without hesitation, her posture changing, taller, protective, formidable. "No one threatens the pack," she said softly. "It's okay," I said, though my pulse disagreed. Agents began filing toward the entrance below. For reasons I still don't fully understand, I stepped past Lyra and toward the door. If I hid behind them now, I would never deserve the title they'd given me. When the agents knocked, I opened it before they could try again. "This is a private residence," one began. "They're my guests," I said, surprised at how steady my voice sounded. Behind me stood giants capable of turning the hallway into abstract art. The agent hesitated. "You are responsible for their conduct?" "Yes." The word felt heavier than expected. But also, right. For the first time in my life, I sounded like someone worth following. The agent studied me like he was trying to decide whether I was brave or just catastrophically unaware of my circumstances. Behind me, 8 towering extraterrestrials stood in absolute silence. No one fidgeted. No one spoke. The hallway felt smaller than a shoebox. "You understand," the agent said carefully, "that gatherings of this scale require authorization." "I understand," I replied, hoping confidence could be faked long enough to become real. "But there's no threat here. Their family." The word slipped out before I had time to analyze it. Family. Something shifted behind me, a subtle, collective stillness that felt almost emotional. The agent glanced past my shoulder, clearly measuring the odds of enforcing anything against beings who could probably use armored vehicles as folding chairs. After a long moment, he exhaled. "Keep the noise complaints down. We don't even have music on." "Good evening," he muttered, retreating with the unmistakable speed of someone who had decided paperwork was preferable to confrontation. The vehicles lifted away. The tension dissolved. When I turned around, every alien in the apartment was watching me. Then, slowly, the eldest approached. Up close, she seemed even larger, Yet there was a gentleness in the way she lowered herself to meet my eye level. "Walk with me, pack leader," she said. Lyra's gaze flickered toward mine, not worried, but attentive. I followed the elder onto the balcony. For a moment she simply observed the city, her luminous markings pulsing softly in the night. "Why do you protect what is not your own?" she asked. The question caught me off guard. "I didn't think about it that way," I admitted. "Someone needed to stand there. So I did. You place yourself between your pack and potential threat without hesitation." I scratched the back of my neck. Honestly, I was hesitating internally the entire time. A low sound escaped her, and it took me a second to realize it was laughter. "Courage is not the absence of fear," she said. "It is choosing where to stand despite it." She studied me in silence long enough that I started wondering if I should have prepared a speech. Finally, she asked, "How will you ensure my daughter's safety?" The answer came easily. "By making sure she always has a place where she doesn't have to be strong." The elder's eyes softened. "On her world, she is a guardian," she said quietly. "Few consider what guardians require." I thought about Lyra fixing disasters in the kitchen before anyone noticed, about the way she hovered close without demanding attention, about how carefully she had asked whether I wanted her to stay. "She deserves that," I said. The elder straightened to her full, astonishing height. Then she bowed. Not the polite inclination from earlier. A deep, unmistakable bow. "You are worthy of the bond," she declared. Behind us, the others followed suit, massive forms lowering in unison. I panicked immediately. "Please don't bow on the balcony," I rent. A ripple of amused energy passed through them as they rose. When we stepped back inside, Lyra approached, her expression searching. "My mother has accepted you," she said. "Your mother is terrifying. She likes you. I'm going to choose to hear that as positive." The relatives gathered their things soon after, preparing to return to the ship now that tradition had been fulfilled. One by one, they paused before me, some touching a fist lightly to their chest, others inclining their heads. The eldest stopped last. "Our pack is yours," she said simply. And just like that, the apartment felt quieter. Not empty. Just settled. When the final transport glow faded from the sky, Lyra and I stood alone in the living room, surrounded by the aftermath of a dinner that had rewritten my understanding of normal. A crater decorated one wall. My table was still very deceased. There was, inexplicably, a ceremonial cloak draped over the couch. Lyra stepped closer. "May I perform the joining gesture?" she asked. "You're asking permission now? You taught me that humans value choice." My chest tightened. "Yeah," I said softly. "You can." She lowered her forehead to mine. Warmth spread through me instantly, calm, steady, grounding. It wasn't possession. It was partnership. After a moment, she drew back slightly. "There is another human custom I wish to observe," she said. "Oh? A question is asked before sharing sleep space." I laughed quietly. "You mean you won't just ambush my bed again?" Her mouth curved faintly. "May I join you?" The apartment suddenly felt smaller, but in a good way. "You may," I said. Later, lying in the dim glow filtering through the curtains, she settled beside me with far more care than that first chaotic night. One arm rested lightly across my waist, not trapping, just present. "Pack leaders receive little personal space," she murmured. "I'm beginning to suspect that." A comfortable silence followed. After a while, I spoke into the dark. "You know, humans aren't the biggest species." "No. Definitely not the strongest. I have observed. We don't have claws or armor or glowing battle markings. You have something rarer." "What's that?" She shifted closer, her voice barely above a whisper. "You make space for others. You decide someone belongs, and then you make it true." I thought about how accidental it had all been. One offhand reassurance, one open door. "You were frightened when you arrived," I said. "I was alone," she replied. "You're not anymore." Her fingers intertwined with mine, Sleep tugged at the edges of my awareness, heavy and peaceful. Somewhere in the distance, the city hummed on, completely unaware that an entirely new pack had just formed in apartment 12B. It's funny. Humans spend so much time thinking heroism has to be loud, battles, sacrifices, impossible strength. But sometimes it's quieter than that. Sometimes it's just telling someone they're safe, and meaning it. All it took to gain a family of giants was one simple promise to a frightened alien. And honestly, best decision I ever made.